Hello, and welcome back to Miss Val's channel. So today what I'm going to do is be talking about some mysterious cases that are still unsolved today. So I'm just going to go over 10 of them and kind of briefly talk about them, but I'm curious to hear what everyone thinks about these. So one of the most famous ones is the Zodiac. So most people are usually quiet about their crimes, but Zodiac, as he dubbed himself, was anything but. From 1868 to 1969, he terrorized San Francisco with his spree, taunting the police with his coded letters to the local paper. He had at least, 5 killings directly connected to him, although he claims to have, killed 37 people. His terror began when Betty Lou Jensen, 16 years old at the time, and David Arthur Faraday, 17 years old, were found lying outside of their bullet-peppered car. Jensen was found dead at the scene with 5 gunshot wounds to her back, while Faraday died of a bullet to the head en route to the hospital. Half a year later, a couple who parked their car 4 miles away from that crime scene was also shot. 1 injured and 1 killed. The survivor, Michael Magoo, was able to give a description of this man who did this. He described a heavy-set white man around 5'8", and it would be the Zodiac himself that would give the police the remaining evidence. At 12:48 a.m. that same night, the police received a very strange call, and the call was, this was what was said: "I wish to report a double murder. If you go 1 mile east in Columbus Parkway to a public park, you will find the kids in a brown car. They have been shot. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." So a month later, newspapers received the first letter from the Zodiac. He demanded them to publish the letter on the front page or he'd go on a rampage. The letter described all of the killings, all written with mysterious ciphers that seemed to form a code. This was a common theme with the other letters he would send as well, all signed with a crossed circle symbol. One such letter was decoded by a high school teacher and his wife. It read, "You like to people because it is so fun, and it's more fun. It's like a wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. Something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting when I die, I will be reborn in paradise." And then just slow down. So the Zodiac would go on and leaving frustrating evidence for the police coded letters, anonymous phone calls, and the cross circle written on victims' cars, sending over blood-stained shirts, accounts from survivors, but the police never found him. The next one is the Taman Shed case. So the Zodiac wasn't the only one who loved to use codes. On the morning of December 1st, 1948, a body was found on Somerton Beach in Australia. The man's body was in perfect condition, no injuries to be found. He was well dressed, although the labels on his clothes were missing. In his pocket was a train ticket to Henley Beach, never to be used. It would be a month later when they would find a suitcase linked to him at Adelaide Railroad Station. Its label was removed, as well as those on the articles of clothing inside it. Unfortunately, it led to no clues, just like his autopsy, which reported no foreign substance in his body that could directly link his death to poisoning. A month later, they would find the most substantial but puzzling evidence in a secret pocket in the man's trousers. It read, "To Manshed." Public library officials called in to translate the phrase. They concluded that it meant ended or finished, which can be found in a collection of poems entitled The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. Immediately, police ran a nationwide search for the book where the scrap paper was torn from. A man came forward claiming that he found the book in the back seat of his unlocked car a week or two before they discovered the body. On the back of it was a strange code scrawled out in a pencil. A phone number linking to a nurse was also discovered. Although the nurse said she had given a copy of the book to an army officer named Alfred Boxell, both the man who found the book and the nurse denied any connection with the man. They never got any further with the case, although many suspect it may have been a suicide, since the book's theme was about having no regrets when life ends. Others think he may be a spy, and until there are any breaks in this case, his grave will remain reading, "Here lies the unknown man who was found at Somerton Beach, December 1st, 1948. So another case that is, still unsolved is the Tara Calico case. So on the morning of September 20th, 1988, in Belen, New Mexico, it seemed like a perfect day to ride a bike. Tara Calico borrowed her mother's pink bike to go out for a spin. Extroverted and active, she worked as a bank teller and was studying to either become a psychologist or a psychiatrist. She planned to play tennis, and that afternoon, she asked her mom to drive out after her in case she got a flat tire and didn't return home by noon. She never did return. Every lead went to a dead end until a year later, when a photo was found of a young woman around her age and a missing boy. The Polaroid photograph was found in a parking lot outside a junior food store in Florida. The 9-year-old Michael Henley went missing in the same area as Calico in April of 1988. When he was hunting turkeys with his father, they appeared in the back of the van with a copy of a book written by V.C. Andrews, Calico's favorite author, lying right beside the girl. Initially, Tara's mother didn't think the girl was her, but the girl in the photograph had a scar identical to Calico, but still, due to the lack of evidence, many experts dismissed the photograph. In 1990, Michael Henley's body was found in the Zuni Mountains, where he was hunting, which strongly disconnects the theory that the two were abducted and taken to Florida. Calico's parents would eventually die, never finding out who took their daughter. So the next unsolved case is called the Severed Feet Mystery. So in 2007, a girl was roaming a beach in British Columbia when she found a sneaker. To her horror, as she opened up the sock, she found a human foot inside. Since then, a number of feet have been washed ashore. So the feet have been connected to 5 men, 1 woman, and 3 of an unknown gender. Throughout the years, with a hoax foot thrown here and there, the case has never completely closed, with many theories floating around as to who the feet belong to. The Van Vancouver police managed to identify one foot in 2008, matching its DNA to the man who was described as suicidal. They later were able to match 2 other feet to a woman who was also believed to have committed suicide. Because of these findings, many speculate that the feet belonged to those who jumped off a bridge to their deaths. However, because of the rarity of only feet and no other body parts showing up, some believe that the feet were connected to a plane crash by a nearby island. Others suggest that those were victims of the tsunami in 2004, since the make of the shoes were all manufactured before 2004. Whatever sources these feet are coming from, they have left the world baffled for years. So, this case has been solved. It's, called The Dead Woman and Who Named Her Killer. So it was, it's been solved, but it just kind of remains how it was solved. That's kind of a mystery. So in 1977, a respiratory therapist in Chicago was murdered in her apartment. Teresita Basa was found under a flaming mattress, a butcher knife buried in her chest. Police attempted to track her stolen jewelry with no luck. They also failed in trying to link any of the suspects to the crime. It seemed impossible to find the person who committed the crime, that is, until Remy Chua, a worker who barely knew the victim, involuntarily became a leading source of information. Chua began having frequent visions and nightmares of Basa. It started in the locker room of her work, where she began experiencing a man's face behind Basa. This would repeat in her dreams. Chua began channeling Basa's spirit when conversing with her husband. While channeling Basa's spirit, Chua told her husband the entire story of Basa's murder. She claimed an orderly at the hospital named Alan Showery was helping Basa with her television, where he assaulted her. He then killed her and set her mattress on fire. The spirit was even able to give the details of what happened to her jewelry, which was given to Showery's common-law wife. Mr. Chua convinced his wife to give these details to the police. The police were skeptical at first, but after seeing Basa's jewelry on Showery's wife, Basa's cousin was able to confirm it, just as the spirit said she could. The police were able to convict the man for 14 years in jail. Unfortunately, there was not enough evidence to convict him longer. But was it really Basa's ghost who named her killer? Perhaps. Chua had known some facts in the case and disguised it as a spirit possessing her. Whatever led the police to the killer remains a mystery still. Alright, the next story is about the boy in the box. So it was the year 1957 in Philadelphia when a hunter found the bruised body of a boy in a JCPenney's box. The boy, around 4 to 6 years old, was wrapped in a flannel. He seemed to have died from blows to the head. Fearing his muskrat traps would be confiscated by the police, the hunter didn't report the body. It was 2 days later, when a college student found the body, that the police started on the case of America's unknown child. It immediately attracted the media's attention, and the flyers of the boy were seen throughout Pennsylvania. Although police received thousands of leads, they were never able to uncover the identity of the young boy. They tried tracing back the JCPenney box and checking the boy's fingerprints, but everything led to a dead end. However, there were 2 promising leads of note. One lead involved a foster home located 1.5 miles away. A medical examiner who pursued the case until his death had a psychic lead him to a foster home where he found a bassinet similar to the one that was sold in the box. Hanging on the clothesline were blankets much like the one wrapped around the boy. He believed the boy belonged to the stepdaughter of the man who ran the home, and she didn't want to be found as an unwedded mother. Police interviewed the couple, but closed the investigation. In 2003, they opened the case again when interviewing a woman identified as M, who claimed her abusive mother bought the child back in 1954. According to her mother, killed the boy in a fit of rage because M was mentally unstable. The investigation was closed as well, leaving the boy to remain America's unknown child. To the next mysterious case was called the Jeanette De Palma case. So usually people connect witches to Salem, Massachusetts, but for this particular case, the witches were in Springfield, New Jersey. It all started in 1972 when a dog brought home a decomposed forearm home. This prompted the police search, and a body was soon found afterwards atop a cliff in Springfield. The body was identified to be that of Jeanette De Palma, a 16-year-old who had gone missing for 6 weeks. Immediately, the rumors began spreading as the cause of her death. The hill where she was discovered was covered with occult symbols, and many believed her body was placed on a makeshift altar. Many locals, even some police members, blame a coven of witches. Otherwise, so they used De Palma for a human sacrifice. Because of a flood, much of the case's details have been destroyed. However, some reports from local newspapers mention that police couldn't determine the cause of death due to her badly decomposed body. They also had investigated a local homeless man who was a prime suspect, only to find no connection with the killing. As for the occult theory, many believe that De Palma may have provoked a group of worshipping teens at her high school when she was trying to convert them. She was involved with a group who had helped addicts by finding faith in Christ as well. So the reverend who ran the group theorized that she was selected as a sacrifice to the group because of this. So was she a human sacrifice, or did these suspicions help hide the real person who had killed her? The next case is the Glico Morinaga case. So this one is pretty twisted. It deals with a Japanese company's Glico, best known for its Pocky snacks, and Morinaga. In 1984, 2 armed men in masks broke into CEO's Azaki's mother's home and bound her, taking the house key of Glico's CEO. Entering his house, they also tied up his wife and daughter. Mrs. Azaki attempted to negotiate money with the men, but they were after something else. Cutting off the telephone cords, they raided the bathroom, where Azaki and his other 2 children were hiding. They abducted Azaki and held him hostage at the warehouse. They issued a ransom for 1 billion yen and 100 kilograms of gold bars. Their plans were discovered when Azaki managed to escape 3 days later. A few weeks later, just when the company thought it had escaped extortion, vehicles in its headquarters parking lot were set on fire. Then a container with hydrochloric acid and a threatening letter addressed to Glico were found in Ibaraki, where the warehouse was located. This began a string of letters from a person or group that dubbed itself the Monster with 21 Faces, named after a villain in a Japanese detective series. These letters threatened the company's products, claiming that their candles were laced with potassium cyanide soda. Glico was forced to pull the products off the shelves, resulting in a $20 million loss and the layoff of 450 part-time workers. After months of tormenting Glico, the Monster with 21 Faces decided to look for fun someplace else. Their final letter towards the company read, "We forgive Glico." With that abrupt ending, they turned their sights on the food companies, Maruduham, House Foods Corporation, and Fujaya in exchange of stopping the harassment towards Maradi. One of its employees was to hand them ransom money on the train. That was when an investigator who disguised himself as an employee saw the prime suspect, known as the Fox-Eyed Man. The man was well built, his hair cut short and permed, with eyes like those of a fox. After dropping the ransom as instructed, he and another investigator attempted to follow the Fox-Eyed Man to lose him. They would get a second chance later on, but he again evaded them. After continuing harassment toward the police, a year later, Police Superintendent Yamamoto committed suicide by setting himself on fire. Ashamed of his failure to capture the Fox-Eyed Man, 5 days following the death, the monster with 21 faces sent its letter to the media. Yamamoto of Shiga Prefecture Police died. How stupid of him. We've got no friends or secret hiding place in Shiga. It's Yoshina or Shikara who should have died. What have they been doing for us as long as 1 year and 5 months? Don't let bad guys like us get away with it. There are many more fools who want to copy us. No career. Yamamoto died like a man. So we decided to give our condolence. We decided to forget about torturing food-making companies. If anyone blackmails any of the food-making companies, it's not us, but someone copying us. We are bad guys. That means we've got more to do other than bullying companies. It's fun to lead a bad man's life. Monster with 21 faces. So that was the final of the Glico Morinaga case. Just the next mystery is the SS Ourang Medan. So, ghost ships aren't just portrayed in movies such as The Pirates of the Caribbean. So, in this true story, the entire crew mysteriously perished. It all started in 1947 when ships traveling the straits of Malacca, located between Sumatra and Malaysia, heard a troubling distress call. So, all officers, including captain, were dead, lying in the chart room and bridge. Possibly whole crew was dead. Following this message was some indecipherable Morse code, and then finally said that they all died. So an American ship called Silver Star answered the distress call and found the Ourang Medan, but there were no signs of the crew on the deck, even when they tried to call them, and so they boarded the ship, only to find themselves in a horror scene. Scattered across the deck were a corpse of the Dutchmen, their faces constructed in such a way one would think they had witnessed something ghastly before their demise. Even the dog was dead, its face also contorted in agony. The captain's body was found on the bridge, while the communication officer was still at his post, his cold fingers still pressing the telegraph. The American crew went down to the boiler deck to find the same situation. Despite it being over 100 degrees down there, a cold chill came over them. Retreating to their ship again, they decided to tow the Ourang Medan to port. But as soon as they attached the tow line, smoke began billowing out of the ship. Moments later, it exploded, sinking into its watery grave, taking all its secrets along with it. What a horrible thing did the crew witness. Some believe it was the work of the paranormal. Perhaps a band of ghost pirates raided the ship, or aliens decided to drop in. Such unexplainable things do happen. So many theorize that the Dutch ship was smuggling hazardous materials such as potassium cyanide and nitroglycerin. Seawater may have interacted with the cargo, causing the toxic gases to be released and poisoned the crew. The nitroglycerin would later cause the explosion, or maybe there was trouble in the boiler room and carbon monoxide killed the crew, and a fire got out of hand and destroyed the ship. What is most troubling is the fact that although the Silver Star is very real, there isn't any registration records of the ship. So did it even exist, or is it just a sailor's tale? And the last unsolved case is not a well-known one. It's the Cape Intruder. So, back in 2005, in the affluent town of Cape Elizabeth, Maine, the community experienced something unnerving. So during the night, victims who kept their doors unlocked would wake up in the morning to catch a brief glimpse of a man staring at them. Before they could react, the man would flee the scene, leaving their house just as it was before he entered. Nothing was stolen, nobody was injured or killed. All that he took was their privacy when he snuck into their bedrooms to watch them sleep. A rough sketch of a man depicted in his early 20s was played on the local news. Everybody seemed to think they knew who it was, and the police received a number of calls from concerned citizens. Although 2 people named the same person, the police never did catch the Cape Intruder. After some intrusions in August, December, and February, he never did break in again. Perhaps he had his fill of staring at sleeping bodies during the time period. But the thought that such a person existed and still walks among us is kind of chilling. So remember to lock your doors and have a lovely night. I will see you all later.